Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper, and this is the last Thursday of the month, post-apocalyptic fiction book club. So we will be following up on volume 2 of Franklin Horton's The Borrowed World series. So he's got several different series, and I've absolutely loved each one of them. Started out with Locker 9 series, and this is basically his daughter. The hero of the book's daughter is away in college. He's rented a locker, one of those storage bins, and put all kinds of prepping stuff in there in case something happens. She and her friend, there's an EMP. She and her friend go to the locker, get that, and they make their way home. So that's quite a great series, and especially lots of great ideas on there, like marking your location as you pass different road signs. On the back of the road sign as you're making your way home to let people know how far you've made it. Lots of great ideas, lots of great survival stuff. In book 2 of that series, he introduces Mad Mick, which becomes another totally different series, the Mad Mick series. I'm now in the third of his series, which is The Borrowed World. This is phenomenal because what it is you've got 6, hello people, welcome. You got 6 people who work for the State Mental Health and Mental Retardation Organization. They've gone to a seminar, and they're from the very western end of Virginia. They've gone to the capital, Richmond, for a meeting of some sorts. SHTF happens while they're at the meeting, and Zippo Bango, they've got to get out of there and make their way home. Of course, vehicles aren't working and everything else. One of the 6 gets killed immediately, which leaves us down to 5. They get about a third of the way home. They 2 of the ladies decide that they want to go to a FEMA camp. They think that they'll be safer there. The other 3, which are the heroes, basically Jim, Randy, and Gary, they head on towards home. Now, Jim and Gary are preppers, so they've had all their get home bags and everything else. They're also illegally carrying concealed inside a state vehicle while they're away on state business. So at least they're armed, but that gets them out of a couple of problems along the way. So we've got 2 groups now, one of 2, which is Alice and Rebecca. They're in the FEMA camp. We've got Gary, Jim, and Randy. In the second group, they're still heading south. The book opens with them being about halfway home. What they did was they trekked along. They figured that one of the best ways, safest ways, would be on the Appalachian Trail. So they've been going along the Appalachian Trail, and they come down into a town where it just so happens Jim has a friend who's there, and they've been friends for quite a while. He's a semi-prepper. But he's also very heavily into booze and other things, and he's a musician, and he runs a barber shop and all this kinds of stuff. So all kinds of great things happen. That's where we are. So as we open this book 2, we've got Jim, Gary, and Randy have just left the Appalachian Trail. They're at Lloyd's barber shop. We have Alice and Rebecca are in the FEMA camp, and the book opens. So let me see where we are as far as visitors and new names and stuff, and see where we are, and welcome everybody. So hello, Clarity Jane, Diana Tude, Little Lone Prepper, Theoxerus, welcome, John H. Is John H the other half of Rebecca H? And Sumi, welcome from Canada. Holly Ivans, LBCSV. That's a new one. Welcome. Glad to see you. Terry in Radar's World. That's a relatively new one too. Maggie, welcome. Good evening. Thank you for the kind comments on your comments on the channel today. Appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I've talked Maggie into getting these, and she's listening to them. She's got she's doing the entire series, and she's even introducing some of the concepts to her group down in Florida. So welcome, Maggie. Always glad to see you. I'm really enjoying the Locker 9 series from Theoxerus. Started book 2, but I've been busy getting my stuff together for real. Yeah, and in book 2 is where you're going to meet the new character, Mad Mick. Oh, what a great character. Just unbelievable. As a matter of fact, it was that name that attracted me to this entire series. somebody said, Lee, because we had just done um, Stephen Smith and we'd done the Stonemont series. We had Stephen on and interviewed him. And somebody said, well, why don't you do the Ashes of the Unspeakable? We'd also just done 8 of the books out of a American series, and we interviewed him on the channel. He said he'd be willing to come back again, and we're doing his book 11, Engineering Home, is going to be our book of the month for November. So we're alternating right now between Franklin Horton 1 month and a American, and we get those 2 series. Stephen Smith says that his new book is due out here probably November, so we might make room for it as well. I found another fantastic author. I mean, I can't put the book down. Just unbelievable. Blaine Pardoe, Blue Autumn. Oh, fantastic book. It's a combination of 1984 versus AL, Antifa, BLM, current political things going on, if you know what I'm talking about. So, oh, wow, what a great book. And I'm looking forward to reading more of his. But I've got so many new books. I just don't have enough time to read them all. Phenomenal books. I love Franklin Horton. I love Stephen Smith. I love A American. Love Blaine Pardoe so far. And I just, got to keep on with those. Let me see. Diana 2, Clarity Jane, Phioxerus. Let me see who else. And Rebecca, and I believe John. Yes, okay, so that is John. Welcome, John. Thank you for your participation Tuesday evening. You added some great value there. Even though you weren't on live with us, you're feeding good stuff through Rebecca, so thank you for your participation. And let me see who else here. Holly Ivans, I think I've already greeted. Little on Prepper, I think I've done too. And Devil Dog Prepper, welcome. Good to see you. Prepper Book Club, welcome. Good to see you as well. Okay, so that's where the book opens. All kinds of things happen. So let me kind of, there's an incident in here where as Gary, Jim, and Rebecca, and Randy are coming down the Appalachian Trail, they come across a campsite, and the people in the campsite have been killed, and their stuff stolen. And as they go further down, they find the perpetrators, and they have a mule, for lack of a better word, a golf cart, whatever. And so they get the stuff back. They dispatch the bad guys. And then later on, when they're on that mule, the father of one of the boys who owned the mule recognizes it, and they're doing it. So I think one of the things I rather than going through the whole contents of the book and everything in a timeline, I think some of the glaring lessons that happen in the book are just unbelievable, because the father and his son, I believe this is named Charlie, if I remember right, the son is a special needs person. And so, and he's facing 2 people from MHMR and a nurse from MHMR, mental health, mental retardation. And every time he's encountered those kind of people in the past, they've tried to take his son away from him. They get into a tiff because, these 3 people have killed his son. That's his 4-wheeler and all this kinds of stuff and everything. So finally somebody gets up behind him, and they have a gun behind him. And so, everything gets kind of tense, and you figure, wow, he's going to shoot one of the 3. And instead of shooting one of the 3, he shoots his son because he doesn't want his son taken away from him. And then, of course, the minute he does that, all 3 of the others open up on him, and he's gone. But I think that's a very important lesson for us, is we are going to, in a post-apocalyptic world, that and then the next one I'll talk about in just a second as well. But in a post-apocalyptic world, we're going to have all kinds of stressors. Hello, Triple G Farms, welcome. And Pat Butler. And those stresses that are there during everyday life are going to be exasperated. They're going to grow exponentially. And so look at the amount of stress on this guy, the fear He's lost one son. He could possibly lose a second son. And the things that are going through his head as an old man with a shotgun and how he tends to resolve that issue. I mean, people don't think clearly when we're going to be in a post-apocalyptic world. And so you have to be prepared for the unexpected. What most people would rationally believe is the next step in a sequence is not going to be the next step in a sequence for people who have an altered state of mind. And that altered state of mind is going to be really enhanced because of the amount of stress that's put on them by society or by the lack or removal of the supports that they had prior. So maybe that son who was killed, the one who took out the hikers on the Appalachian Trail, maybe that son was the only support, the only validation, the only reciprocal of love that old man had. And he felt that by losing his son and now having the opportunity, he is threatened with losing his other son to representatives of that bad organization. Maybe it's time to just call it quits and take care of things himself. So what we see is we have to be prepared for the unexpected in a post-apocalyptic world, because I did not see that coming at all. And I think most rational people would not think that way or expect something like that to happen. So I think lesson number one that we really have to understand here is things are not going to be what you expect. Things are not going to be predictable. You've got to have your head on a swivel. You've got to validate all the options that are available to you and think this is not normal, and people are not going to act predictably normal as they have acted predictably normal in the past. And I think that is probably going to be oh so true. I saw a fantastic big comment up here. Let me catch up. Triple G, you're fine. I'm happy you're here. Vision Preparedness, welcome. So Prepper Book Club, one thing the Borrowed World series really shows is the different moralities that people absolutely, that you are not always on the same level of morality as or thought as other people. So that's the second thing. I told you there were two major incidents in the book that I wanted to talk about. And the other one is there's a guy who gets a guy goes around and of course, what are we going to call it? Scavenging, stealing, resourcing, whatever. But he goes around all the farms that people are either dying or dead or whatever. And so this one guy goes around and he's looking for stuff to feed his family. His goal is to feed his two or three children, his wife, and that's it. Okay. His brother has been released from prison. The moral thing to do is we can't feed you, we can't confine you. So this brother who was, it implies was in prison for murder or at least for violent activity, is released and he goes home. So the one brother is rifling through these houses, and an old woman says, "What are you doing in my house?" And he just shoots her, blows her away. And so as things progress, finally he gets blown away. So what the brother who is released from prison goes down into the valley. He goes to a farm. The couple there kind of put up a semi-defense. He blows them away, hangs them on the fence, hangs their bodies on the fence to let other people know, do not resist us. So this is the criminal mind going into a society where he knows that there is now no responsibility for his actions, that he can basically do what he wants. So the one brother gets killed going to the wrong farm, and they defend themselves and they bury him back in the pigsty, basically, and cover his body and everything else. He never makes it back home. So the brother who's released from prison takes over the wife, the children, and everything else. He doesn't get along with the older child, the older boy. And so here we have another one of those dilemmas, those morality dilemmas of this guy's been released from prison. He's taking over his brother's place. He thinks his brother's been murdered, but can't prove it. He just didn't come home. And so now he's going to take out his vengeance, probably for putting him away in prison, probably for punishing him, probably for society and their evil way that they have accepted him and everything else. And he just goes on a rampage. so that story weaves throughout the entire book, and finally at the end, uh, Jim makes it home just in time. His son has been taking care of the family. Jim's son has been taking care of the family. He sees that, well, his grandmother gets kidnapped by this character, and so he goes out to try to save his grandmother, and he gets captured. And so just as they're about ready to take care of him, Jim comes in and saves the day. Um, but it's very, very violent, and people taking advantage of situations around them, and a total lack of law enforcement and everything else. And so I think that the key things we have here are, number one, whether it be the criminal who was released from prison, or whether it be the father whose son was murdered, notice the vengeance here. If you take care of one of my family members, I'm going to dispatch you. And that's going to be one of those very high emotions. Let's take the learnings in this book and apply it to what we see going on in the world right now. I watched a video, and I posted it to my group, my mutual support group, mutual assistance group. And but it was a BBC interviewer was interviewing 6-year-old children in Gaza and asking them questions about the Israelis. And they said, we need to kill them, feed them to the dogs. I mean, we are teaching hatred to 6-year-olds, to first graders, and embedding in them a necessity for revenge because of things that have happened in the past that are generations ago. But we're embedding that hatred, embedding that revenge. And just think of all the people here in the U.S. right now, before the grid goes down, before SHTF, before Teotwaki, before all that other kinds of stuff, who are hell-bent on some sort of revenge. I've got to get even with the people who are persecuting me, who are trotting upon me, who are trampling me down. We have seen that. We've seen a mental case like that just happen in the last 24 or 48 hours up in Maine, where somebody feels that they have to take revenge on society for what they feel has happened to them. And I don't think this one's over yet, and so we're seeing our own little version of SHTF here in the States as well. And gosh, people, the unpredictability of people and what is going to happen in the near future is just unbelievable. Although I haven't read it yet, I think there's a big attraction for post-apocalyptic fiction for me. Um, and not only Murphy's Law, but the Peter Principle as well, because that kind of takes place in the FEMA camp with what is it, Alice and Rebecca. Rebecca kind of builds a relationship with one of the guys in the FEMA camp. Doesn't know his background, doesn't know anything about him. The three of them make a plan to escape. They do escape, and Alice is the only one that makes it out because the other guy kind of dispatches Rebecca. He's one of those abusive kind of guys and controlling and everything else. And the two of them get into it. And so it ends up to where Alice is the only one out of that group that survives. Out of 3 women, she's the only one. And, so far in this book, she hasn't made it home yet. So that's going to be interesting to find out where she is right now. As we end this book, she is currently a prisoner. It appears as if they are going to use her as a slave for immoral purposes, if you understand what I'm saying. This group that has captured her, because she is chained to a post. There's a dead woman lying on the ground in front of her. There's all kinds of messages that she's being used for the gratification of these men who have captured her and have her in this barn, handcuffed or chained to a pillar. So things are not looking good for Alice. Whereas, the other 3, 2 of which were prepared, and the other one saying, okay, You know, things have changed. And I think that's the key thing we have with Randy is Randy says life has changed. You two guys know what you're doing. You've got some plans, you've got some equipment, you've got some training. I'm with you. Okay. Uh, I may not like what's going on. I may not agree with what's going on, but at least you know what you're doing. And I think I have a greater chance of surviving with you. The others took a more moralistic stance of, no, we can't do that. You guys are carrying guns. That's wrong. We can't be with you. And out of those three, only one's left, and she's not in a good position. So lots of things going on there. Lots of little subplots going on inside this book that are just phenomenal when you analyze it. Let me see where we are here. I think that people who are not having a normal life now might be our greatest assets because they're used to making it do. Let me tell you something. Some of the greatest prepper training that I have experienced was when I was HR director for the 5th largest homeless shelter in the U.S. Learning from those people what they prioritized, how they prioritized it, how they survived, and there was a big discussion at that time, and this was probably 7, 8, 9 years ago. There was a big discussion on YouTube, on Facebook, and everywhere else about gray man, being a gray man. And so, they needed this, they needed that as far as backpacks and clothing and everything else. So where I worked, we had 4 homeless shelters in a 1-block radius. We were the Arch, Austin Resource Center for the Homeless. And then my office looked over an alleyway into the Salvation Army, which was just due north of me. The alleyway in between us was the bathroom, basically for the homeless. So I could look out my window at any time and see somebody relieving themselves against the wall of the Salvation Army. Then 1 block west of us was the Episcopal Church, St. David's. And they had a lunch soup line. And then directly south of us was Caritas, which was the Catholic Charities for the city of Austin. And Caritas had a lunch line as well for lunch. And so, you had this great conglomeration of all these homeless right there in the center of downtown Austin, 7th and Natchez, 7th and what was it? Anyhow. One of the other rivers. But we were only 2 blocks away from the Austin Police Department, believe it or not. And so I took a tally sheet. What color clothes are they wearing and what color backpack do they have? Because I want to blend in. These are the people, the nondescript homeless. You look at them, you say, that's no threat. That's a homeless person. You just look off. And I took just sat there for hours, over a course of a couple of weeks. And so what are they wearing and what color backpack? There wasn't any. There was nothing common. I saw Mickey Mouse backpacks. I saw, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle backpacks. I saw Army backpacks, Marine Corps backpacks, and you saw everything. So I don't think it's so much what you wear is how you conduct yourself that's going to be determining whether you're a gray man or not. I didn't see anybody wearing suits, so I don't think I'd be wearing a suit. But other than that, pretty much you could wear anything you want and get by with it. So Little Lone Prepper says, come on, doggone. There we go. Little Lone Prepper says, a lot of people don't have any morals right now. I can't imagine how bad it will be in a SHTF situation. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. The other not normal people represent the other potential. Yes, potential for violence, but there's also a potential for hope there as well. So what we see is, the party hardy, the abnormal, which was Lloyd in Lloyd's barber shop. They're the halfway point where Jim and he are friends from high school, and they went different paths. And Lloyd is a drinker, smoker, party animal, band member, all this kinds of stuff. And he has his group of buddies. And so that's a totally different lifestyle than what Jim did, going to college, becoming part of this organization, working for the state and everything else. But yet you see the two of them coalescing and agreeing on so many things. And they still have this tight bond and this tight friendship, even though they're diametrically opposed. They aren't the same. They have different outlooks on life. They have different value sets as far as responsibility and everything else. I think the key, and who was it? Little and Prepper, I think, talked about it earlier, was the moral bond that the two of them have, the knowledge of, basically, when you get right down to it, the humanistic right and wrong. And I think that's probably what's going to be the one thing that will have a chance of saving us. But I was going to tell you thank you for reminding me. I went on to a tangent, but I did learn an awful lot from the homeless while I was there. How they take a bag of Fritos and turn it into a pie, how they pack their packs, what's important to them, why they don't carry toilet paper and things like that. I mean, these people have learned an awful lot being on the streets. I think the single most important thing they've learned living on the streets is reading other people. And, I think that the generation's a little bit younger than we are, a lot younger than I am. We don't have the ability to read them because they don't have they don't have the intersocial skills to give you the clues of what's going to happen next. Everything has to be on a cell phone or it has to be electronic communications rather than interpersonal communications. I don't think we have the same level of interpersonal social skills in today's society that we had 30, 40, 50 years ago. So that means that we don't have the ability to read unless you're in a society like the homeless society. The ends are okay at any means to the end, and the end is survival. So yes, there is an awful lot, and I think it's more than just a small section. I think there is probably even up to an average of say 40, 50% of the people believe that that's okay. And I think we're seeing a continued decline of that as we go on. We used to have, and I don't want to get into religion, but we used to have basically a tighter morality, but that was based off of religious moral codes, Ten Commandments, whatever you want to call it. And I think that as we decrease our dependence upon religion and we no longer have right and wrong, but we say everything is situationally adjustable, then we're going to see more and more of those dilemmas where you don't have as much of a firm moral belief as we have had in the past. And I see that in great decline here in our country. Well, no, I see it in great decline throughout the world. There are a couple of countries that are really becoming more and more religious. Russia has returned to religion with a vengeance. Hungary, Poland. Oh, wow. It was basically Pope John Paul II who was instrumental in returning Poland to religion, and then I think as a result of that, that's why he became the Pope. But Poland's probably one of the most religious countries in the world right now, I would say, and probably one of the most moralistic as well. Let me see. Gosh, you guys have such great comments. I am so blessed to have you. Thank you so much. Did anybody see the movie? 13 Cloverfield Lane, I believe it was. But they talked about that a little bit there. He had a big 55-gallon jar or drum of lye, basically, that they would throw bodies into. But that's basically what pigs are good for. Supposedly, if you throw a body into a pigsty, they can pick it clean pretty quick. Yes, and I believe retribution is going to be unbelievable. And that's kind of like the Clantons and the McCoys. Is that right? Am I getting that right? The right names? They're the West Virginia area. The feud that went on there. You killed my brother, therefore I have to kill you. And now he's been killed, so his brother's got to vindicate him. And so you have this family feud that goes on for 100 years. And hello, KP Heathen, welcome. No, not to my knowledge. And Helen is watching the news in the bedroom, so if they do, I'm sure she will let me know. So feral hogs here in Texas, people are paying to go on helicopter rides because there is no license required to shoot a feral hog. You can do it from helicopters. They're willing to pay you basically to kill them. We used to have, when I was going to college, part of the way I funded my way through college out in El Paso was the coyotes would take out some of the dairy cattle when they were out feeding. So the milk company would pay us for a pair of coyote ears, $5 for a pair of coyote ears. And so that's how I paid my tuition for college, was dispatching coyotes for the milk farm. Let me see here. And that's something that is very important, let alone prepper. And I think it's more important than people know. I've asked one or two people, to come here and help me. And some of the people around here in the neighborhood said, well, I'll just come to your house. I said, no, you won't. I need guards. I need people I can trust. I don't want to have to stay awake to guard the guard who's guarding me. I want people that I can trust, that I can get 2 to 4 hours sleep a night while they're here in my house protecting me. And so you don't build that kind of trust overnight or over a week or over a month. That kind of trust has to be long embedded. And one of the guys that's on my high trust list, he and his wife just decided they're moving to Colorado. So they bought a cabin out in the mountains of Colorado, and they're off. They leave next month before Thanksgiving. So I'm down one of my highly trusted friends, who is a great shot, by the way. Yeah, it's terrible. And then, of course, at my age, we're kind of life has its limits on age, and so a lot of the people my age are kind of leaving the field of how do we say this gracefully? Our time has expired. How's that? I learned a lot for one I knew well, but the other issue is that they might have a hard time integrating with the group. Yes. Different habits and priorities based on their street life days. You are so right on that. We did what we called PIT, point in time, PIT. So one night every year, we go out on the streets 24 hours, and we just try to meet as many homeless people as we can, get their life story, a little bit about them, data, and then we aggregate that and we come out with the PIT report. What does the homeless population in the city of Austin look like? 80% of the people who are on the streets at the last PIT, and so this is that one point in time, one night out of 365, 80% were self-described abusers of either alcohol or drugs. So they were semi-permanent homeless. Only 20% were situationally homeless. Lost my job, lost my family, whatever. I need I need some help to get back on my feet. I can get back on my feet. I can maintain it. I just had something intervene in my life that caused me to be where I am. Those 80%, if you take a look, just take a look at some of the news articles, look up the Arch in Austin. What you're going to find is along 7th Street and along Natchez, we had people who lined the streets outside of the Arch who were not allowed inside the Arch because they would come inside the Arch and start a fight with another homeless person, or they would do things that would break the rules. And so because they couldn't come inside, they stayed outside. And that got to be a very violent thing because what do you do? I mean, they're on the outside. You can't threaten them with, well, you can't come in and do your laundry, or you can't come in and eat, or you can't come in and do this or that. They could always eat at one of the other 3 agencies. And so your opportunity to discipline those people is slim to none. And of course, the police didn't want to put them in jail because they just mess up the jail cells. It's a dire circumstance. So I would say be suspicious of everybody. How's that? Can I say that and get by with it? Yeah, I think I'm approachable as well, and especially for dogs. Dogs like me. Uh, hey, Maccabeus, welcome. So glad you joined us. I saw you over on David Lynn Prepper Principles channel, and thank you for coming over. Uh, yes, those people who are unpredictable are right. They can read people. I wish I had that. Hatfields and McCoys. Thank you, Prepper Book Club. Thank you, Diana, too. Thank you, Little Lone Prepper. Yep, I have those senior moments, and thank God I have such a great group of people supporting me. What was it last night? I forgot something, and somebody came up with it, and I just, God, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. We can't do this unless all of us are here together, because you are such an important part of the discussion. Let's see what Green Man Prepping. Hey, Gil, welcome. Good to see you, buddy. For those of you who don't watch Green Man Prepping, he puts out a series of prepper, what do we call it, Gil? Prepper tools on a regular basis, prepper tips. And he's been focusing on saws here recently, and some great videos. So I strongly recommend you check him out. He's going to give you some great ideas. He also has some late night shows for those of you who stay up later than I do. And those are worth watching as well. Let me see what Phioxerus has to say. That was my life for 40 years, so I think I'll slip right back to a night routine quickly, but patrolling outside in the winter is just awful if needed. Although I like guard duty in the winter because the cool keeps me alert and awake, more so than the heat of the summer. Although I was on guard duty, we had a deal in the 1st Infantry Division when we did an FTX for civilians field training exercise, and so we would go out to the field. And I was a senior NCO. I was a sergeant first class, and with the 337th ASA Company, Fort Riley, Kansas, 1st Infantry Division. So our intelligence operation was right there close to the G2, the Division Intelligence Officer, which was at the Division TOC, Tactical Operations Center. And so we called it Division Main. And so the general was in a bowling league, and I was the NCO. So the first night we were out in the field, the NCOs always pulled guard duty the first night and let the soldiers sleep, let them get some rest. And so I was on guard duty. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and the general's Jeep came up, let him off, and he was approaching the TOC entrance, and I pulled back the charging handle on my M16 and let it slip forward. I said, "Halt, who goes there?" Oh, he lost his britches because, that charging handle has a very distinct sound. And man, he says, "Who the hell are you?" And so I told him, and finally he calmed down. He says, "Damn good job." But he was upset. He almost had an accident there out there in the field. But yeah, that was something else. Those are some good times. I don't think lone wolves are going to make it for too long, Phioxerus. So I have to agree with you there. And because you got to sleep sometime. You don't have eyes in the back of your head. Although we do have a sixth sense, there are no eyes in the back of your head. So you can't be turning around all the time, and you have to sleep sometime. And there are times that you're focused on some task, whether it be chopping wood, gathering water, fishing, hunting, processing food, or anything like that, when your mind is distracted and you're not watching your environment around you. It's during those times that you're very susceptible to a sneak attack. And I would not want to be a lone prepper in those circumstances. Uh, let me see. Oh, Rebecca says her brother was an Austin police officer. The Austin police, the Austin went woke, and they did that police defunding, and they are down, I think, something like 150 police officers, and they just can't attract anybody to come in. They realize their errors, and the new mayor for the city of Austin, Kirk Watson, was my executive director when I worked for the Texas Natural Resource Conservation Commission when I was the HR director there. And yeah, he's trying to fix things compared to what the previous mayor did. But it's going to take quite a while to overcome what the police department views to be a betrayal of law and order. And so that's going to take quite a while. Who's your prepping nurse? Welcome. Good evening. Welcome. Little lone prepper. I have a large family and few lifelong friends, but no one close who's interested in working on prepping. One of my sons is a half-hearted prepper, but he's 600 miles away. Here's the way I look at it, little lone prepper, and I could be totally wrong about this. I will take a person who knows nothing but I trust over a person who knows a lot but I not yet trust. I think the trust is going to be more important than anything else, because if I trust that person has a will to survive, then we're good to go. Now I will admit, one of the guys that I have invited that I do trust, I've known him for 20 years. His best friend has a wife who is handicapped, and I mean they are like this, And so my question is, do I trust him enough to where he won't dispatch me and bring his best friend in? So that's constantly in the back of my head. So I'm going to have to make that decision when he comes to my door about what I'm going to do, because, will he betray me, his second best friend, in favor of his best friend in a situation where it's life or death? Don't know. I wish I wouldn't be in that predicament, but that's where we are. Lee, moderate, cold, comfortable, sound travels really well in cold, still areas, but snow can muffle sounds too. Yep, absolutely. Yes, 3 people. I agree. One watch, one doing chores, and one on rest time or whatever. Absolutely. I like to think of it as 4s. So I've kind of got it divided up, to where if you have 4, you can do 2 hours of watch time and then 2 hours of chores. And so while if there's a total of 4, that means you got 2 hours of um, guard duty and then 6 hours available for sleep or chores. So if you do 2 hours of guard duty, 2 hours of chores, and you got 4 hours of sleep, and you can do that 3 times a day, you can get a total of 12 hours sleep. Although you probably would not do that way, but I've been aiming kind of towards 4 people, Dan. Right now I have a guaranteed 6, so that's even better. Let me see what Rebecca has to say here. Okay, let me see. Gil agrees that trust is important. So trust with me is not easy anymore. Too many lessons, but maybe I'm wiser in my years. No, I think it is wiser in your years, because I had a really good friend, and he's a handyman. So I did a video here maybe a year ago about the 5 biggest mistakes I've made in prepping, and one of them was not investing in good heavy duty shelving. I bought some of that intermediate plastic shelving at Sam's, and so what happened was that my shelving unit collapsed under the weight of the stuff that I had in it. Actually, I had 3 of them, and all 3 of them collapsed. So I got a hold of this guy. He's a handyman, and I've known him for 20 years. And I said, okay, I'm going to take you in. I'm going to show you this room, and I need your help in building shelving, and cutting some wood and everything else. I said, I want you to know you're one of 6 living human beings to have seen this room. And I want to keep it that way. So that's got to be part of the agreement before I invite you in to help me with the shelving. He said, okay. So we went in, we took care of everything. We had our next business meeting where about 20 of us guys get together and we share business recommendations and referrals and stuff like that. And he stood up, he says, you guys are not going to believe what Lee has in this house. And just went and spurted it all out. And I thought, gosh, I trusted this guy. I really trusted this guy. And he did that. I haven't talked to him since. That was probably 6 years ago. I have not talked to him since. Mm-mm. Sue me, yeah. That's what I was thinking. I don't have the scientific knowledge that you do, or anything else. But I was thinking, a minimum of 4 hours rest is what I needed when I was out in the field. And so what we would do is we would work 12 hours intelligence analysis and reporting, and then 4 hours of guard duty, and then 8 hours of rest. Every time it was my 8 hours of rest is when we decided we had to jump. That means tearing down the current location and moving to a new location and setting up, and then you go back to the old schedule. So quite often I would go 2-3 weeks with only 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. So yeah, I think 4 hours is the very minimum. So one of the other things I really want to get into in this book that I think is really, really important, and that is Jim. Well, there's 2 things I really want to discuss. Number one, Jim did a very good job of training his family in safety with weapons, in how to cook, and how to use the tools that he had stockpiled for them. He also trained them in how to evacuate their primary home because they were hunkered down people. And they had a cave that they had set up and had it all prepared as a secondary location that they could evacuate into. So remember when the Khan was coming up and killing people in their houses and burning their houses and everything else, and they got to the ranch next to theirs, then took those 2 bodies and hung them on Jim's family's farm. Now remember, Jim's trying to make his way back from Richmond, and so it's the wife, the 2 children, and the father-in-law and the mother-in-law. And so they evacuate to the cave. So he trained them how to evacuate to the cave, how to use all the materials in there and everything else, how to set up a watch, how to live off the landscape, how to cover their paths, how to do a watch with a scope so that this reflection of the scope does not give a glint indication of who you are and where you are to other people. And that becomes critical later on in the book for his son. But, you've got to train your family, make sure your family knows almost as much as you do. The other thing is that while they came across a ranger shack in their travels, and they picked up some GMRS radios. And I showed you my GMRS radio Tuesday evening, a UV5G Baofeng. But anyhow, they picked up some government GMRS radios, and they have a little bit more power, and they can connect. So one of the things that after everybody gets home safe, Jim, Gary, and Randy, all 3 get home safe. One of the things that they find out is that you need elevation. So all 3 of them pick different. They set up a time, a schedule when they're going to communicate with each other and share information with each other, and they all 3 pick the highest elevation that they can get to, so that they can expand the line of sight on those GMRS, so that they can communicate with each other. And I think that's another critical thing is remembering that you need to set up some sort of a communication schedule, methodology, and have the radios available for communicating with other people who are important to you. So one of the things we find out is Randy's home is okay. Gary's home, when he gets home, things are bad there. So Jim and Gary are talking over the radio, and it appears as if Gary may need to evacuate his home and move in with Jim at some point, probably in the next book. because things are really out of hand there. And so, even your neighbors, be careful how much your neighbors know if they aren't in line with you, because that makes you a target. So you have to be very, very cautious about that. That would have been nice. That would have been nice, but yeah. And then after he cut the boards, I actually have them. There's a 1 inch gap on each side. They're 2 inches short of the width of the shelving. So, but they've held up over the course of the last year or so. So, I've also reduced a lot of the weight on there. So, it is what it is. I wish that hadn't happened, but you learn. And people you think you can trust, it ends up that you can't. And people you think you can't trust, it ends up that they keep a secret for you. So you never know. You never know. Who's your prepping nurse? Good to see you. Always good to see you. And so another one is that you can take basically a toilet paper roll, or as you're saying, a paper towel roll, and you can basically cut it so that you have a shield over the top and then halfway down, and then cut away the bottom and tape that over your scope. And that's another great way of keeping that sunlight out of it. However, you also have to be cognizant of where the sun is, where your target is that you're looking at, because if the target's over there and the sun's over here, it's going to reflect. So you got to be careful. You got to how can I shield that so that I'm not getting any reflections off of my scope. So yeah, but yeah, taking a paper towel roll or a toilet paper roll, that helps an awful lot. I have not heard that before, but that is worth remembering. Thank you, Sumi. That's great. I have one family member left in the area, and her 2 children, and I don't trust any of them. So I will tell you that up front. I wish I could. I mean, I bought her a couple cases of food, told her what she needs to do, and I don't think they're doing it seriously. They aren't serious, and I think they can come here after something happens. But too many things in the past have happened that I know that I can't trust them. So okay, let me see if there's anything else here. Oh yeah, here's some other things that. So on page 80 of the book, it teaches you how to pick a padlock. In case you come across something that's padlocked and you want to learn how to pick it. Great step-by-step instructions on page 80 of this book on how to pick a padlock. Page 131, he talks about long shadows. So quite often, be careful when you think you are in cover. So remember, in concealment. There's a difference between cover and concealment. Cover means they can't hit you with something, a direct shot. Concealment means they can't see you. So sometimes you think you are in concealment. So there's a bush here, I'm here, and the sun's over here. Well, when the sun is setting, it's going to show a shadow over here. That shadow is observable by a person over here, so that they can see that I'm behind whatever it is. I may think I'm concealed, but those long shadows can give you away. So always be cognizant of where you are relative to the sun, not only because of the glint in the scope, but also because of the shadow effects that you're giving away that may give away your position to somebody else. On page 133, they talk about crossing over barbed wire. I have, and I never thought of this, but it's absolutely true. I have a tendency to try to cross barbed wire in the middle between two posts. And the reason is because I can push down on a barbed wire and get it to go down pretty good, and I can just kind of straddle over it. But what Mr. Horton says is cross barbed wire closer to the pole because it's more stable. Whereas I'm looking for that sag, and it can spring up, and it does not feel good when it springs up and you're still straddling it. But if you get closer to where it's actually stapled to the pole, it is more stable, and so you can actually kind of step on it and use that as a stepping stone to get over. And it's not going to spring and have that effect of coming back up and having some of the puncture wounds that you would have if you aren't careful where it's sagging. So those are some of the other ones. Let me see. So I said, make sure you talk about mental disease, unpredictable behavior, the old man who shot his son Lawrence. Uh, oh, Jim, Randy, and Gary. Some of the things they did um, when they got back to their office before they all got home. Jim said that he wanted everybody to go to the women's offices and look in their drawers in their desk. And he said, because women have a tendency to keep kind of an emergency stash of foods and snacks and stuff in their desk in case something happens and they need to just grab something and run and eat and get back. If they want to run an errand or something, they find a way to make up for that with stuff in their desk. And so they have a higher propensity for food in their desk than do men. And so he sent them out looking for all the women's desks to find out stuff that they could eat until they got home. And I don't know. It's something sounds viable. I don't know. We could definitely check that out. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's a higher propensity for women to have snacks and foods in their desks at work than men do? Let me see here. That would be great, except your ghillie suit has to match the season. Here in Central Texas, there's only green and brown, and in the summer, sometimes the grass is even as brown as it is in the winter, simply because we don't get that much rain. We've had rain for the last 2 or 3 days, but and hopefully we'll get enough here this week to where we can get a little bit of our reservoirs filled up because we've been on water rationing. But we have to make sure you have your ghillie suit that is set up to replicate the natural environment around you. The other thing is, remember that sometimes ghillie suits, camouflage clothing, etc., can be a giveaway if you're in an urban environment, that you are, one of those people, for lack of a better word. Yes, dysentery or worse from crossing over barbed wire fences. So Diana too says, yeah, probably the women will have sweets, chocolates, things like that in their desk. Sumi says that it's probably true of some guys as well. I'm one of them. I used to have the little microwave versions of tomato soup and chicken noodle soup and those kinds of things at my desk because it depends. I was my last job before, no, it was the job before the homeless shelter. I was with a power company, electric power company. And, it just depends on what was going on because I may not get to eat lunch, on new hire day, or if we were bringing in a whole bunch of people to interview, or if I had to go do certain errands for benefits negotiation or something like that. A lot of times I would eat out of a soup bowl or one of those Campbell's microwave soup bowls out of my desk drawer. So yeah, so I'm guilty. I'm probably one of those that breaks the rule though. Shenanigans says he doesn't have a desk. Okay. Thank you, Fioxerus. I will tell you one of my experiences. Now, my brother-in-law had a horse ranch, and so I carried 3 CCI snake shots in my revolver, the first 3 rounds, and then the next 3 were dum-dums. And the reason is because when I got out of the pickup to go open a door, a gate, at his ranch. That's where the rattlesnakes seem to congregate. The rattlesnakes seem to congregate, number one, in pairs, and number two, around fence posts. Or at least that's where I saw the vast majority of them. And here in West Texas, we grow some big Western Diamondbacks. Um, Snow camo poncho wouldn't do us any good here in Central Texas. We don't get snow that much, and when we do, it barely stays on the ground 4 hours. Now, ice, if there was an ice-covered one, gosh, we get the ice. We'll have ice storms. They're predicting we're going to have worse ice storms this year than ever. Um, that's a good one. Uh, what I did now, so here's the excuse, okay? HR. So I always was able to have a jar of candy on my desk for my employees who came into my office so I could offer it to them. Of course, I'm an employee too, so you know. Um, Dan H says he keeps it in his bag because people would steal it. Yes, Blue Dawn is a phenomenal book, Rogue Gypsy. It's by Blaine Pardoe, and in my opinion, it's a modern version of 1984. And you will recognize some of the major political figures we currently have in Congress and in our government in the book. Very easy, not very well hidden, but it's written kind of 1984-ish. So, ah, ah, what a phenomenal book! Great book. Uh, oh, that's great. Now, of course, when I worked at the uh, power company, the electric co-op, um, if we had an ice storm come in, everybody worked. So even as HR, I would go in, I would prepare pots of coffee, put them in a thermos. I would prepare hot chocolate, soups, stuff like that. And so then we would take those in a four-wheel drive with knobby tired truck, and we'd take those out to the linemen where they were working on the poles, restoring power with broken lines or short-circuited transformers or anything like that. So everybody worked, but we also had we had a generator that was capable of keeping the entire station, both buildings, up for 96 hours, and then we could switch over to a secondary tank of diesel and run it for another 72 hours. So we had basically a full week's worth of diesel. We could keep both buildings up 24 hours a day, run everything electrical in those two buildings for a full week. We also had a tornado room. So we had this one room that was just steel, and everything around it was steel, so that if a tornado hit, we could all go in there. In that room, we had coffee pot, microwave, and we had a closet full of food that we could immediately use in case we were confined in there during a tornado or during an ice storm and couldn't get out. So, yeah, there are different organizations that have different levels of preparedness. And, I would say that probably if you want to get with your local power company, they probably have a fantastic plan on how they're going to survive in case of an SHTF event. I, I, I have seen people eat it, and that's what I've been told. Not that I would participate in it myself. I cannot confess that I have ever tasted it, and I don't think I ever will, to be honest. I think that would be one of those cases where I'd really have to be hungry in order to do that. When I first went to Germany, I'll give you this one story, and then we'll close it down because we're at 1 hour and 3 minutes. The last assignment I had in Germany, I was up north by Checkpoint Alpha, a little place called Detachment Wobeck. I think I showed you the picture of the Tory Tower. And so there were only 32 Americans in that town, in the town of Schöningen. And they kind of adopted us. And so one time the town took a field trip to Bad Zwischenahn. And Bad Zwischenahn is the oldest continuously operated Gasthaus in Germany. It's been under continual operation as a Gasthaus by the same family for about 700 years. Their specialty is they're right on this lake, and their specialty is eel. So when you went there, I got a cheese platter. I couldn't do the eel, but they serve these eel, and they come out and they're pickled, and they have they run a cord through the mouth and then through the gill, and then that's the price. They've weighed the eel, and so you pick your eel off the platter, and you've got this price tag stuck through the gill, and that's what you pay for that eel, and then you skin it and pull the meat off and eat it right there at the table. And then after you get done with that, they have what they call Löffel schnapps, which is spoon schnapps, or it's a really high concentrate whiskey, almost like white lightning. And so you buy it so you can clean the oil and grease off your arms and hands from having eaten the eel. And so I kind of envision rattlesnake and eel as being pretty much the same thing. And of course, I did not participate in that historic event. I had a cheese platter with bread, and was very happy that I did that. So sometimes when it comes to some of the more gamey stuff, I'm a little bit on the cowardly side. Okay. So it looks like Feoxer has tasted rattlesnake, and that's something I have not done. Okay. Last Thursday of November, if I'm not mistaken, is Thanksgiving. No, Thanksgiving is the 22nd. So we do have last Thursday is the last day of the month, the 30th. So the last day of the month, the 30th, we will be doing Engineering Home, which is volume 11 of A. American's book, the Survivalist series. So this will be our book for next month, the 30th of November. Engineering Home. I'll put that in the show notes so you can buy it and read along and be with us. Then the end of December, the last Thursday in December, is going to be volume 3 of the Borrowed World series, which is Legion of Despair. So that's our reading list for the Fiction Book Club for the rest of this year. And I want to be able to get Blaine Pardoe's book in there because, gosh, it's such a great book. We'll probably start the year off with Blaine Pardoe's book, Blue Dawn. If we still have electricity, if we still have internet, and if we have a whole bunch of other things. So, gosh, keep your heads tuned to the news. I mean, it's getting worse and worse as we go along. It's not looking good at all. Say your prayers for those of you who believe in that. Things are definitely challenging. Okay, the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 20. I'll do 23 through 26 today. So it says, "This is how you shall bless the Israelites. Say to them," 24, 25, 26. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace." So I put out yesterday and today, I put out 2 different shorts on eating in a post-apocalyptic world. Somebody asked Tuesday evening about coffee. So I put out a short yesterday on how to do coffee. Of course, you got freeze-dried, you've got beans, you need a grinder, and then you've got the vacuum sealed or regular canned ground coffee. So then if you're going to use the ground coffee, how are you going to prepare it? So I showed drip over, both an old 1950s drip system that my dad had, the current modern 1-cup drip system, which is what I'm also going to use for my water purification system. I showed a camp percolator that you can get at any camping supply store. You can get it at Walmart, I believe, too. But it's just basically an aluminum percolator. I showed an espresso maker that I had ordered on Amazon quite a while back. So you put everything down inside and you compress your grounds in the top of it. The water boils, the steam goes through the grounds, comes up, condenses through the tube, and then you have basically espresso, because I love cappuccino. And then what was the other one I showed? Oh, French press. And I probably have 4 or 5 French presses. But French press is another way that you can do coffee in a post-apocalyptic world. So that was yesterday. Today, the one I put out was cold drinks in a post-apocalyptic world, like Tang. If it's good enough for the astronauts, by golly, it's good enough for me. So, Tang, Kool-Aid. Right now, there's a sale going on. It starts tomorrow morning, starts at midnight tonight, goes through midnight Sunday night. 25% off the vanilla and chocolate milkshakes at Nutrient Survival. So I'll put that link on here as well, but that's only for 3 days. The code word is, or the discount code is PAYDAY, all in cap letters, PAYDAY. I don't get anything from that. But if you're into, you want vitamin enriched shakes, that's the way to go. Milk, tea, instant tea, lemonade, so many great kinds of great cold drinks that I would like for you to also consider getting. It's a morale thing. Of course, I think milk is going to be essential, but it's a morale thing to get some of the other things. So that's kind of where we are. So remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Thank you for the outstanding job you do in supporting each other and treating each other with respect in the comments. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'm also looking for a couple more people who are interested in being moderators for me. As the channel continues to grow, I had 1,000 new subscribers over the course of the last month. So as the channel continues to grow, I just want to make sure we keep this type of a familial organization going. I want to make sure we keep people who are kind to each other, polite to each other, and respectful to each other, and offer the great ideas and cover for me when I have my senior moments. So if we can keep this as a family, and I can get some great people who are interested in helping us do that by being moderators for me and helping to keep that kind of an environment, please send me an email, and that's coldwarprepper@outlook.com. So thanks, everybody. Love you. Have a great evening. Don't forget to click that like button, subscribe, and if you want to, go ahead and share it. I will put a couple things in the notes afterwards, and I'll have those up tomorrow morning, especially the links for the books I'm talking about for the rest of the year, as well as Blue Dawn. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Bye-bye.